For those of you who I haven't connected with yet, my name is Haley. I am a Senior Policy Associate with Advance CTE. And today you are joining us for a webinar focusing on elevating learner voice through CTE Youth Participatory Action Research. So we are going to dive in to the background information of the webinar, just so you can get an understanding of the information that we're going to be diving through today. So we're going to be walking you through the process, the results, and the lessons learned from a pilot project that we completed with some of the project partners of this work. And we are going to discuss how this work has progressed, how it's processed, and what some lessons learned are, and how we can leverage those findings for continued CTE program improvement. So just for a quick overview of what you can expect of just learning about this pilot. So basically, Advance CTE helped to recruit a group of 15 high school age learners to receive training from the Kentucky Student Voice team and designing their own youth participatory action research project. So learners came from 3 academies in Fayette County, Kentucky, including Tates Creek High School, as well as Bryan Station High School and Frederick Douglass High School. And over a semester, those school teams received training from the Kentucky Student Voice team to learn about different youth research strategies, as well as survey design and how to use these findings to become more effective advocates for high quality CTE programs across the state. Across the pilot, we were really hoping to learn how can we leverage these findings to continue to influence states with leveraging learner voice to improve CTE programs. We know that learners are a comprehensive resource for CTE program improvement, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know that learners will share with us how their experiences are going and what needs to be improved, and we as the adults in the system can translate those findings into policy recommendations as well as practice changes. So this pilot really helped to inform Advance CTE of what steps we can take to help states in doing similar work and making sure that we are taking into consideration processes that you're already required to do within CTE, but making them more robust, equitable, and more engaging for learners by actually partnering with learners and putting them in the driver's seat and them in the leadership position to share what they need and how they need it. Some of you might be familiar with the learner voice work that Advanced CTE engages in. If you're not, this is a graphic that we use fairly often. But basically, in a whole, when we think about learner voice, it can best be conceptualized as occurring on a spectrum. So thinking about how we can provide spaces for learners to share their feedback and share their opinions, and then also guiding and supporting learners so that they can step into a leadership role and actually drive systemic change. So this continuum that you see here is something that we've referenced fairly often, and this project pilot is a great example of how learners are in the leadership end of the continuum. So I am going to stop talking on to the important stuff, right? We want to hear from our friends. So I'm going to first pass it over to one of our partners at the research network, Kathy Hughes and Sean Doherty. So I'm going to pass it over to them to share a little bit more about the importance of this work. And then we'll hear from our panelists, which include the learners and our partners from Kentucky. So let me go ahead and pass it over to Sean and Kathy first to share a little bit more about the importance of this work. Thank you so much for being here, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Haley. And I love this graphic, by the way. It's really great. But thanks for having us today. We're excited to be here. I'm Kathy Hughes. I'm a principal researcher with the American Institutes for Research, and that's a nonprofit research and technical assistance organization. And Sean Doherty, who you'll hear from in a moment, he and I are the co-leads of the CTE Research Network. And that's funded by the Institute of Education Sciences, which is the non-political, non-partisan arm of the U.S. Department of Education. So the goal of the network is to produce and share more research on CTE. The network members are conducting causal research studies. So that's really our focus. And those are studies designed in a way to show cause and effect, that students participating in CTE, they have different outcomes that are really caused by CTE and have different outcomes than they would have had if they didn't participate in CTE. And happily, our research is showing a range of positive impacts for students who participate in CTE, like higher high school graduation rates, higher college going, and better employment and earnings. But we are excited about any new research on CTE, and particularly this research that's been co-designed and co-led by these learners. Because as we've been working with the members of our network over the years, and that's dozens of researchers focusing on CTE, we keep talking about how critical the learner and the community voice is. So, for example, when we're trying to measure and understand whether students have easy information about and access to CTE programs, we want to understand, well, how do learners even perceive CTE programs? Do they think positively about them? Do they hear negative things about them? Like, how do they even know about CTE opportunities? And if they are interested, is it easy to enroll in them? And why do they enroll in them? So answers to all of those questions are such an important part of CTE research, and they can only come from the learners. And learner voice is also really important when we're trying to look at the quality of CTE programs. So even if we find a positive effect of being in a program, like how can we describe if it's a quality program? We have to have the learner's point of view. They can explain why they think it's quality, what they're learning. They can identify areas for improvement, for helping them be better engaged, helping them learn more. And as Haley said, like identifying the problems, identifying potential solutions, and then advocating for practice and policy change. So we even developed an equity framework for CTE researchers to help them think about all these kinds of questions and get more learner participation in their studies. So if you're not familiar with us or haven't been to our website, it's really easy to remember. It's cteresearchnetwork.org. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from the students today. And I'm going to turn it over to Sean now for a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Kathy, and thanks to Haley and the Advance CTE team for including us at the front end of this webinar. Like Kathy, I'm really excited to hear firsthand the student voice and the process of the youth participatory action research that folks engaged in Kentucky. I'm Sean Doherty. I'm professor at Boston College. I'm on leave from that role this year and working at the U.S. Department of Education in offices, including the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, OCTE in the Office of the Undersecretary. I'm a former K-12 educator and assistant principal, high school assistant principal, was a liaison to our regional technical center in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, where I lived and worked at that time. So I'm especially pleased to be here with my educator hat on. But with regards to the network that Kathy and I helped to co-lead, one of our goals as a network is to help develop and train new CTE researchers. And it strikes me that the participatory action research process that y'all have been engaged in is an example of the part of that training. Most of the work that we do in the network with our research teams and to folks who come to our summer trainings, it involves exposure to and skill development in experimental and quasi-experimental quantitative evaluation methods so that we can enhance our understanding of what works and does not work in CTE for learners and educators, but crucial to understanding the why behind these causal effects is the sort of participatory action research and on the ground student involved research like what you all have been engaged in, and I'm excited to hear more about. The training and professional development that our network helps to provide brings in the latest research from the teams in the network, as well as other thought leaders and emerging scholars focused on career technical education. And we believe that work is critical to growing and supporting the next generation of CTE researchers. So, achieving this goal can only be further enhanced by capturing and including student voice and the experience of young people and supporting their development as researchers and as scientists. So like Kathy, I'm really thrilled to get to be a listener and have had a moment to say hello at the front end of this webinar. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean and Kathy. Really appreciate your words and you being here, and can't wait for you all to hear from our amazing project partners and, most importantly, the learners. So I will go ahead and pass it over so our partners can introduce themselves and share more about their amazing work.
So I believe, Haley, I'm going to start us off, right? And so do you want to pull up the slide, or do you want, you know what, let me pull it up and just make sure that I can do that again. Thanks for everyone's patience with our tech today. Okay. And everyone see my slide. Great. Okay. You know, have only done this 6 or 7 times earlier today to get there. So Sean and Kathy, thank you it's nice to meet you both. And thanks everyone for being here, and Haley for the nice introduction. I am Daniela DiGiacomo. I am a professor at the University of Kentucky. That is my day job, but what really gets me going in the morning is this job I have with the Kentucky Student Voice Team, which is to be their adult research partner. And so I'm their adult research partner for the past 6 years, and they are young people from across Kentucky who work to co-create more just and democratic Kentucky schools and communities as research, education, research, policy, and storytelling partners. So as an organization, Kentucky Student Voice Team has been doing youth-led or learner-led research for over a year. As a learning scientist myself, I'm trained in what's called in the field youth participatory action research, which means, as Kathy and Sean spoke to, that I sort of proceed with the assumption that because education and learning, students themselves are the primary stakeholders, that it makes a lot of sense to have them involved in not just, getting their perspectives on the education and their insights, but actually the ones that are driving in part the design of the questions we ask of the research, how we ask the research, how we analyze it, and then what we do with it once we find out what's going on. And so it was an easy match then when CTE came to Kentucky Student Voice Team and vice versa to say, let's have the young people who are involved in CTE really be involved in shaping the questions we ask through research within CTE local context. And so that's what we did in Kentucky this last year, and the students will speak to that. But I would just say again, here on the side, it says a guiding assumption of this type of community-based participatory research is that research is very impactful when it is co-designed from question to dissemination. And guided by the idea that really, again, in line with what Sean and Kathy said, that we have not only an incredible commitment to this research proceeds with an incredible commitment to young people as the primary agents and experiences of their own lived stories and experiences, but actually also with those who can take on the next generation of becoming researchers in the field as well. So I will now pass it to two Kentucky one current and one former high school student involved in this work. So. Haley, I think you might be muted.
Hey, can you try it again? You should have the ability to unmute yourself.
Okay, no, I can't. I was unable to unmute. My school is currently playing music for dismissal, but I am Kaylee Hicks. I am one of the CTE researchers, and I'm currently a senior at Tates Creek High School. I am the Academy Ambassador mentor here, and while my school continues to play music, I will pass it over to Reed.
Hi, my name is Reed Maynard. I am currently a freshman at Denison University, double majoring in education and public and political affairs. I was our former ambassador mentor for the International Baccalaureate in Information Technology Academy. While her school is playing music, I am also in my freshman dorm. So I am going to be completely honest, there will be a great chance you will hear something happening in the hallway. That is just what happens here at all times. All of you were in college, so that will most likely happen. I'm just going to forewarn you right now. But for this study, we kind of wanted to go ahead and jumpstart, just explain kind of what Tates Creek High School is. We are a part of the Academies of Lexington. And so part of being in the Academies of Lexington, we are an Academy Model High School. So we have 5 academies. You can just stay on that side. We have 5 academies. We have a freshman academy, which all of our true freshmen go into their first year. And then in January, they go through a showcase, which is actually happening right now at Tates Creek High School. And they go through and they pick from our 4 career-related academies. We have design and engineering, medical emergency services, business, entrepreneurship, and education, which Kaylee is in, and then my personal favorite, International Baccalaureate in Information Technology Academy. Each one of those academies has each of their respective pathways, and students go through those pathways and take certain classes to reach their certificates at the end of the year. That's a very, very quick overview of just what Creek is as an Academy Model School. If you want more, you can go to their website. They're a great school. But I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kaylee to kind of explain what we do as ambassadors, or what I did.
So ambassadors kind of lead what happens around each academy. We are there to guide new kids or new students or even adults who are coming into an academy program, showing them what academies offer. We all have pathways, and as an ambassador, you need to know all your pathways and all your academies. That way you can show what we are and how this really puts you ahead going into college. We also give tours to students from other schools and districts and people from the district.
Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So part of our goals for this research was to really see what students were learning, and we wanted research for students by students. So we knew that students would be much more open talking to their peers than they were with their administration or anything else. And so we really wanted to see what they were getting out of CTE, because not only are we reaping the benefits, but we are also seeing, like, reaping the cons as well. And so we really wanted to see what we could get out of CTE, especially in our school, see what was working and see what was not working for each of our academies. So we really wanted to see, like, that engagement and our partnership with our students and our teachers, and see what we could work on, what we can maybe make better, what was working and what was not working.
So for the methodology, our initial goal was to make a survey with all 3 of the academies to post all around each school. Unfortunately, that did not go as planned, and Tates Creek kind of went on our own. We made a survey that really works with our academies and our school, and we got almost 100, we got 99 results from that survey, and we really got to post it around the school, and it was led by the students. Unlike most things that are given, it's given by teachers, but this was for students by students, and it really helped.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, we created this survey. We had a couple other kids that are helping us out. We had one from each academy, and we sent them off, and I was like, hey, go find questions in your academy. And we met back together and made them a little bit broader to fit all 4 of our career-related academies. And so once we did that, we made posters and we posted them out throughout the building. We sent it out to a couple teachers to, like, hey, like, maybe encourage your kids to do this. We posted on our school news that goes out every morning. And we really just wanted to see, like, what was working. And so they were very, very broad and kind of fit to everybody, to really just get a good understanding of a baseline of where we were at Creek.
So when we designed these questions, we can actually just go to the first results. So 51% of learners say that they did not feel prepared. So for a lot of these results, we're not going to see the results that we maybe wanted to, and that is because we included our freshmen and sophomores in these results, where our freshmen and sophomores, they shouldn't see the relevance. They shouldn't feel adequately prepared for a career, because they have either just picked their academy or they're just getting into their first year. Like right now, today, actually, I just hosted the Academy showcases. So these students right now are just learning about their pathways, where as in your 11th and 12th graders, they are starting to feel more prepared because they are starting their upper levels and starting to get their certifications and go into their pathways.
So I am. So 92% of learners actually indicated that they had some academic growth while taking these CTE classes. That was huge. That really showed us that CTE was working for our students. It was helping them. It was also helping with our engagement and like showing that they felt like they were getting something out of CTE and getting something out of their education. And this is what we really needed to kind of back up that hypothesis that CTE does really help students in school and really connects not only with their CT classes, but their core classes as well. And so this was a really, really fun sorry, I've been speaking all day, statistic to show to our administration and teachers and show that, hey, this is working and like we're actually making a difference in some of these kids.
So this is kind of my favorite. 78% of learners indicated that they had excitement coming to school because of CTE, which I say you can really tell. When you ask kids like what their favorite classes are here, they're going to say their CTE classes because it's where they feel it's not like a core class. It's something that they have a lot of interest in. It's something that they're going to want to end up doing. And so they're going to feel excited. And to see that they feel excited to come to school in general, it's a really good statistic.
So 63% of our learners did not see the connection between CT and opportunities outside of school. So this one we kind of took to heart a little bit. And I remember going through conversations and we looked at it, we're like, okay, why does this not happen? And we kind of realized that only time you really see the repercussions of your certificates and you're explained to them like point blank is freshman year. And so there's a big gap between freshman year and senior year. And so we are really looking for, I knew when I was graduating, looking to see how we can make that more accessible to our students. I know especially for our Design and Engineering Academy, it's kind of laid out there for their Adobe certification and their welding and electrical and all of that. They have more clear career paths with those certificates, where I had a business certificate where I did not know what to do with that. I was going to college. What was I going to do with that? And so we're really looking at this statistic and making sure that now students have access to seeing where they're going. That is still a work in progress, but seeing what they can do for them outside of high school and making sure they get the most out of the education they are getting in high school.
So 60% of learners were mostly or completely satisfied with their CTE program, which is great. It's over half. And we would like to see this number more. And I think something that could help is maybe learning them more in their freshman and sophomore years. After we got these results, me and Reed really sat down and we saw like what could we tell the teachers this year of what to do with these programs. And I've seen that just this year we've really went into our CTE classes. We've really tried to make everyone feel like what they're doing is relevant, so to help with the satisfaction.
You can go to the next slide.
So our policy number 1 is that freshmen wanted more chances to explore the pathways. They're saying that the only time they really get to see these academies or pathways is at the academy showcases. So we are really been trying to have more ambassadors going to speak in the academies, or getting the freshmen to go to these academy events and showing them what these academies offer, because each of our academies is on a different level of the floor. So at our school, so getting to show them, they'll get to know before they have to pick.
And so our second thing we were implementing, which we already had implemented before, was getting more students to go in and speak to our teachers. So every 2 weeks, every week to every 2 weeks, each of our academies has an SLC, small learning community meeting, where they all get together and they meet and discuss behavioral issues, but also what was working for our students and what they can do for that. And so I did this quite a bit when I was in school. I know Kaylee's done this before, but really making sure that the students are going in and saying, hey, this is what's working for us this week. Here's what's not. And kind of building that relationship with those teachers, and not only doing it with your ambassadors, your top of the line kids, but with some of those kids who aren't going to go up there and speak and do that. So making sure everybody's voice is heard. And so we've taken that kind of from a small scale and gone to a bigger scale. They have reached out. I have been reached out to after I graduate to kind of see how that's been working. Not only for the kids there, but what happens after you graduate. So like making sure that the CTE discussion does not just end when you graduate high school, because CTE follows you throughout the rest of your life. And so kind of making sure that that's kept up through our building.
And I would like to add to Reed, actually, I don't think you know this. Each SLC meeting, a teacher gets to pick a student, whatever kind of student that is, to go and speak about their pathway. So you're getting so many different voices.
Yeah, I did know that. That was something me and Majors had talked about last year. Actually, me and Majors were going through that, which is my academy principal, who I'm still friends with. But yes, no, but it's really cool. I've enjoyed seeing it kind of work out. Do you want to start or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll take it. So some reflections that we had is that some of the results kind of surprised me. Actually, seeing this now, I'm not as surprised as I was the first time. But really seeing how some students didn't feel prepared by their CTE was kind of shocking to me, because I've always known I wanted to be a teacher, so I felt my pathway was very fitted for me. But I see where some of the students are coming from, where when they go into their pathway, say in the teaching and learning pathway, and they figure out they don't want to be a teacher, then they feel stuck, and that's why they're not feeling prepared. So getting them to really show in these polls that they want more time to go see the other pathways, that's really going to help them.
Yeah, kind of following the same thing that she said with the reflections. I was kind of the same thing kind of surprised me at first, but it made a lot of sense. Especially going from not a career pathway, because I was an international baccalaureate as an IB student, kind of seeing the outside of it. I was like diving in and saying, oh, kids can change their minds, which was really, really cool. And then also through this process, it was really cool kind of seeing Kaylee and the other students become more leaders in the building and doing this research project. I had done it for a couple years before, but it was really, really cool kind of seeing them stand up and do it themselves. So it was like a fun project to kind of watch them like grow a little bit, especially because I've known a lot of them since like middle school. So that was also a really, really fun part of this project.
Some refinements where we didn't really start this until, I want to say, second semester. So we would have done this earlier. We would have also got some more. The meeting out of school is something that we really went big on. We were stuck. When you have such a hard high school schedule, it's hard to meet always in school every other week. So we talked about meeting in person or meeting out of school and some things like that, just to really get this off the ground running faster.
Yeah, kind of following same thing. We were pulled every 2 weeks for an hour, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot, especially second semester with juniors and seniors is who you had. We had 4 juniors and me, and that's a lot. And it was also a lot. There was a lot of pressure put on us, especially to run this. And so it was definitely working on clarifying some relationships between some of those adults in the situation and people who were running it, and making sure like, hey, like you're not just gonna throw it on the kids and tell them to figure it out. Like making sure those relationships are clarified and there's like a good game plan. Was of course a pilot, so there was no game plan, but kind of making sure in the future that there is a game plan, that every kid is kind of taken care of, and like your researchers are taken care of, your administration's more involved, and then there's that relationship between the people who are running it and then the researchers as well.
Can you all still see me, but now you can't see any slides, right?
Correct.
That's fine. I'm Tom, I'll pull back up the slides, or if you want, you can as well. What do you prefer?
You can if you want to.
Okay. And I would just, I just want to, I know this isn't great for the recording, but for those on the synchronous call, One thing I want to say also in gratitude to Haley and Reed is that, so just so others on the call can understand the structure, the Kentucky Student Voice team and the adult research partners were pulled in, and then it was sort of like a train the trainer type model. So we had sort of senior members, so college age students of the Kentucky Student Voice team supporting the high school age students in these meetings once a week virtually. And it was Kaylee and Reed school, but also other schools, and the types of things. So Kaylee and Reed, when they went into designing the questions, administering the surveys and the interviews, they were things you'll be from researchers on the call will be familiar with. Like, we talked through how to design a good survey, how to not do a double-barreled question, how to make sure in an interview you're not talking more than the interviewee. These sort of research 101 type trainings are what was in the first few weeks of probably a few months actually of the semester. And that's why, as a collective group, as an intergenerational group, there was a few things we would do differently. But one of them is that we needed to start much earlier. We needed more time because it takes time. And then also life happens and semesters happens and seniors happen, and you're already dealing with a lot of busyness. And so that was one of the things we talked about. But just so that everyone knows, we didn't just sort of Kaylee and Reed and the group were really thoughtful in these questions, and that also included things like pilot testing all of the questions, a few iterations, interviewing each other, and then coming back and refining that. And we can speak more to the methodology after, but just a little plug there. Okay, Tom, I'm going to attempt to reshare again. Is that okay?
Yeah, this is the one where they
Thank
presented at the statewide advisory committee. So my name is Tom Thompson, Division Director, Student Transition and Career Readiness in the Office of Career and Technical Education for the Kentucky Department of Education. If you could go to that next slide, when we were approached to do this pilot, we thought anytime that we could get student voice and think about how that could be disseminated in the school and the thought process of scheduling and what's offered, we just thought it was a no-brainer to join the process. And the benefits, we all know the benefits of action research and student engagement, and we just thought this was a win-win on both fronts there. If you could, I guess they're not popping up. I don't know why that didn't. There were some slides that weren't showing, or wording that wasn't showing. Anyway, so this gave the students an opportunity to voice, valuable input on CTE and in their district. And then also they had an opportunity to present at the state level at our CTE advisory committee. We meet twice a year with it. It has legislators on there. It has CTE advocates and even our state level CTE ACTE organization. So it was a good opportunity for them to provide input for it. But what we took away from that was that it provided a proof of concept at the school level for the local comprehensive needs assessment, which was the point that we really wanted to get into. And we would like to expand this. So we would like to be part of this second round if possible, so that we can expand this to other schools and other school structures, I guess, because in our state, we have area technology centers, which are state operated centers that feed several schools will feed into those. And we wanted to put this same process into place to where we can get all of those different voices from the different sending schools at the table. And when you think about the comprehensive local needs assessment, a lot of times we'll have students on those committees, but those committees are large, and sometimes it can be intimidating for a student to be able to share true voice in that. It may only be a couple of students. This gives us an opportunity. Like Kaylee said, she said, oh, it's for students by students. This is a perfect opportunity to gather a bigger portion of that voice and share it in this platform so that they can really be heard at these meetings and make an impact on all the things CTE. It did deliver, I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out that it delivered a preview to all the struggles that Haley and Reed had pointed out there, so that whenever we roll this out on a bigger scale, we'll kind of preempt some of those struggles and make sure that there are defined roles for all the individuals, and make sure that administrators know that what their roles are and how to support the students in it. But we were super excited to have an opportunity to be in this, but really the students were the stars of this, and we were like a fly on the wall watching it all unfold, and it was fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. So before we go into a brief Q&A period with all of our speakers, I am first going to replace myself as a spotlight. There we are. Hello, thank you. So just so you also know, from this work that we've learned from the Kentucky Student Voice team, their learners, the State Department, we will be launching a technical assistance opportunity for 3 states to kind of benefit from these lessons learned and figure out how we can leverage learner-led research in the comprehensive local needs assessment. You're already required to engage with learners as part of that required process. So why not make that process robust and meaningful and equitable, and ensuring that we are giving learners the opportunities, sharing with learners the leadership opportunities in order to make the changes that they would like to see. So we will be sharing more about this opportunity. We've already released the application, as well as we're in the process of confirming our states right now. However, we will continue to elevate the lessons learned and the stories that are coming out of this opportunity. And we will also open up some communities of practice if you'd like to come together with some states and understand how others are approaching learner voice work and how you can maybe make some policy or practice changes in your own regions. There will be opportunities to do so, and we will make sure that you get those in your inboxes. For now, we are going to turn off the slides. As I shared earlier in the chat, we will be sharing these slides after the webinar. But for now, we're going to turn it over to our speakers and our panelists so that you can ask them any questions that you might have about this work. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that our learners and our speakers are all, oh, I'm so sorry. I am going to add you all to that. While we're doing that, it's okay. You're doing great, Reed. I'm going to add the rest of the speakers to the spotlight. And while we are getting folks on the foreground here, I would love for anyone who has any questions to pop those in the Q&A so that we can keep track of your questions and
I can start to speak to some of the questions I'm seeing now. So Cam asked, were the students compensated? Yes. So it is a sort of, that is our requirement as a student voice organization. And also actually in all of the YPAR work I do now, I make a hard pitch, whether it's foundation supported or federal supported, to compensate the students for their time. Because it really is an equity issue. I mean, when you're asking students to participate in these things in the out of school time, a lot of students are working for their families, for businesses, for restaurants, and this is the type of opportunity that we want to value, but we need to pay for that. So yes, definitely compensated.
I saw where you asked how. We were compensated in Amazon gift cards through them, and then we were also compensated to go to Phoenix and speak. But that's all that. I don't know if you saw that, Danielle. I'm so sorry. But
no, sorry. I'm struggle bus today with technology, apparently. So
no worries. I'm happy to help keep us on track as much as possible. Another question that came through is, from a researcher perspective, was the sample size large enough to extrapolate to the population?
personally, I do. Honestly, we have each of our classes we have a larger school, so we have about 1,200 students, but also with those 1,200 students, we have a lot of freshmen, we have a lot of sophomores, we have a lot of kids. And I would love to have had more, but at the same time, we could not force students to have this survey because that would have skewed the results as well. And so I think it was not too much, but it also was not too little, especially for a pilot, to kind of just see where we were. But I definitely believe that if we had more than 300, that I would have been very weary to go through these results, just seeing our school population, just because I'd be like, okay, who was forced to do this and who actually wanted to do this? Because the difference would have drastically changed our results on that one.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question. Do students get a chance in the IP development process at Equity? Not sure totally what they mean by that.
Yeah, can the person who said that expand a little further?
While we give that person a chance to expand further in the chat, let's go ahead to the next one. How do you make sure that student voice is being used in a meaningful way and not just a check the box or checkwity that you're engaging students?
So that's a great question. And I would say from someone who, from the adult researcher side, that is one of our most problematic things with doing white power research, right? And in student voice is that the worst case scenario is that students engage in this really meaningful mocks and then adults say, good job, way to go. I wasn't doing that at your age. You know, that can happen very frequently. And so it's really important that the action part of the YPAR process is come to fruition, where, for example, you know, the results are presented back to the schools, the SBDMs, the school board decision-making bodies, the Kentucky Department of Ed, the Kentucky Board of Education. So I will say there's always room for improvement of that. And I'd love to hear from Kaylee and Reed. I think that's one of the learnings again from this project, because at the time we basically ran out of time from the academic year standpoint to, because of everything going on with the seniors, to really present back to the school level in a meaningful way. At the same time, I definitely think the Kentucky Department of Ed and the Board of Ed have heard it. They gave us space within their meetings, and that's really important. So I think when you think about doing this in your own context, it's what sort of contacts can often some of the adults make in those spaces to facilitate those connections to ensure that the young people who are doing this work, it's not just a performative capstone project.
Our staff was amazing with this. Our principal and Miss Fain, who's our academy coach, they were so into our research. Whenever we had questions or whenever anything, our CTE teachers or our principals, they'd sit down and they'd listen and they'd help us explain. So they knew this process. They've heard it from Reed. They've heard it from me this year. And I love our staff. So they're great.
Yeah, no, every single time I was always in an office, at least once a day. I was in an administrative office just to help out and do stuff. And so they were very much a part of the process. I remember like sending the thing off to Dr. Field, who's our executive principal, and all of our academy principals were involved in it as well. And they really did actually take what we said to heart. I remember sitting at graduation and we would point out kids like, oh, he did that, or like they did that. But they really were a part of it. Like they did do as much as they could at that moment, but they are truly the best staff. I'm still friends with a lot of them right now, but they're incredible. They did as much as I think they could have.
Wonderful. So now we have a question asking to hear more about the CLCs and how Academy students can inform decision-making throughout the year.
And like the SLCs and stuff, the students are all brought in and they're picked honestly randomly. So I know this year they do it by subject. So a science teacher will pick, and you come in and you share your perspective. You show what's working in that academy. You show what's not. And the teachers in that last 30 minutes of their meeting will really sit and talk. What can we do to improve for all of our learners and all of our students to help them get to where they want to be? Because it's at the end of the day, it's how are we going to get these students to use their CTE careers?
And those SLCs are truly like, it's not just the SLCs that are like doing it. They're also taking what we say and they're applying it like in the hallways. All of our teachers, like they'll stop and ask you in the hallways, hey, like how was that? Because they all have to stand outside their doors. So it's like more than just the small learning communities, but it's the whole, that time is specifically to make the students' lives better, basically, in that academy. But it's really fun meeting, honestly, to go and be a part of. So
Nice, thank you. There's another question about your survey results. So were there any significant differences in the results in different student populations?
Not that I remember. I think they were kind of like there's a couple with the freshmen and sophomores, but it wasn't like drastic. There wasn't a drastic drop or a drastic increase.
Yeah, I remember this summer when we were taking all the results from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It was kind of honestly the same. It wasn't ever drastic.
Nice. All right, another question for Reed and Kaylee. This person is curious about what questions you would want to ask students at comprehensive high schools. So maybe if you didn't necessarily have the academy model, which might be hard considering you're in the academy, but if you can, right? Maybe, and what would your hypothesis be? You know, like if you might do this in a different context, in a different setting, what do you imagine might come out of learners being engaged in this type of work? I believe is what that questioner was asking.
I would really ask if they had like a path, if they knew what they were doing on high school. Being in college, I am surrounded by a lot of kids who went to boarding schools and like just went to regular high school. And they kind of came out of high school and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I think that would be like asking and seeing like the results of like, hey, do you have an interest? Do you have a field you might want to go into? And seeing the differences between kids from academy model high schools and other high schools would be very interesting.
I so agree. That's where I was going with it too.
Amazing. Okay. Another question about, have you thought about expanding the survey to include other groups than students and examine the potential differences? Okay. If you're clear on that question, I would love for you to answer, but I honestly would love additional information from the person who asked it. Have you thought about expanding your survey to include other groups than students and examine potential differences?
If they're meaning like if we can expand it to the non-academy schools here, I think if I don't know if we could because these are all academy and CTE related, and the other schools who are not academy based here, they wouldn't be able to answer those because they don't have the pathways. Or
I agree with Kaylee. It would be very difficult to kind of expand it out that way.
And I think one of the things too that Kaylee and Reed talked to that's important to think from a research perspective is that it's so, because CTE looks so different in every school. So even within Lexington, within a district, within a county in our case, it really looks so different. And so we're very mindful of who's not at the table with this. I mean, Kaylee and Reed are obviously exemplary students. And hopefully the next generation of future researchers and current researchers. But I would be wary, both in terms of size and any sort of generalizable, that it's co-designed in context in every next setting, because it just looks really different in each space. And I think the survey worked in this sense, but I think what we also know is that it's really important with these sort of sample sizes too to get a mixed method. And so part of that, again, fell a little bit short because of time, but we would really want to make sure that we were doing peer-to-peer led focus groups and interviews at different sites as well. So hopefully, Tom, in this next round, we can do that more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daniela. Okay. Did any of your research touch on CTE programs students are most interested in?
I mean, it didn't, but we could tell you which ones they're most interested in at our school. I mean, they're mostly our law enforcement pathway is a big one. Education pathways also, and entrepreneurship, what I would say would be our greatest strengths at Creek. I mean, you had showcases today. You could explain I can see it in my head right now, but you saw it today.
we had showcases today where our freshmen got to go and visit each pathway in each academy. And just from the start, you get to see they loved the health classes, where the nurse aid classes where they could do CPR on the babies. Or we have a new pathway in the teaching and learning where you get to have the baby simulator, and the kids just love being able to pick up that baby and just hold it. So getting to see how excited these freshmen are, though, it's kind of good as someone who's graduating from it.
Wonderful. We have some more questions about your data. One person asks, population, do you have population groups other than age? I guess in your findings, did you look at population groups other than age? And then another person asked, do you have the results at the gender or more, I'm guessing a disaggregated demographic level? Did y'all dig that deep in your data?
We did not. We should have done by academy and pathway, but us and our administration was not as we were a little weary to go into demographic area. We didn't want to call students out like that. That was not what this was about. And so we really wanted to see from a broad perspective, but we should have gone, me and Kaylee talked about this, like it would have been so much better if we had it by academy and by pathway and stuff, but we did not. We also discussed going into demographic level while we were creating the survey, and that was something we didn't want to bring in at that point. But yeah, we did discuss it, but it was not something we were willing to do at that moment.
We were almost afraid the more questions we asked, the less likely the students were to do the survey.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Reed and Kaylee. Wonderful. Moving on to our next question. By the way, if any of our audience members have questions, we are going to be ending this webinar in just a few minutes or so. So please get those questions in the chat if you have them. One panelist asked about resources for students who might not have been able to participate maybe in the research process because of things like transportation, their living status, other factors that might hinder engagement. So do y'all have any thoughts or reflections on thinking about how we can make sure all learners can be engaged regardless of, their circumstances?
Well,
You go.
go ahead, Reed. No, you go.
I mean, if they're coming from like being a part of our research, like the research methods, like answering the questions, we tried to make it as accessible as possible. There was posters in every academy, in each hallway. It was posted in our news, which is broadcast in each and every classroom. It was also posted on Canvas on a couple things. And so there was a lot of ways for them to access it. So we did think about that, and we did really want to try to make sure that everybody had the chance to see it and do that. But we did try our best to make it as accessible as possible and get the word out. It was a bright yellow poster. You couldn't miss it in the hallway. I think it's still there, I'm pretty sure. So you couldn't miss it.
Not anymore. We took it down now.
A small follow-up to that is that, so this particular pilot, we did that all on Zoom. So we did it all on Zoom with everyone having their own. In Kentucky, we have basically a one-to-one device now since COVID, especially. And so there are, challenges and constraints, or no, that's both. Constraints and affordances to the digital era right now, which is because in a lot of ways it has increased students' access. From a youth participatory action research standpoint, we have a lot more participants across the Commonwealth as students because they're able to zoom in on their phone. At the same time, a limitation in this work that I think Kaylee and Reed would probably attest to is that without the physical interaction first, you lose people and you lose students, and the accountability to oneself is, from my vantage point, really decreased. So I've made a pitch in this next round of pilot to that we need to build in funding to make sure that at least sessions one and two happen in person. And that's going to involve some cost, but it'll also lead to less attrition over time with the intergenerational group because you have that accountability to each other. So that's more of a methodological reflection.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, I do not have any questions left, so we got through them all. So that's amazing because that usually never happens in a webinar. So wow, of course learners would do it better. Okay, amazing. Well, that was great. I really appreciate everyone for being here. As we close out, I would love just like one piece of advice you would all share with anyone interested in doing this work, or, trying to really elevate learners as leaders in their own context. Let's go ahead and start with Daniela, move to Tom, and then we'll close out with the learners, of course.
Don't be afraid to do this work intergenerationally because it is as robust intellectually as it is energizing emotionally.
No, I think I would just say, make sure that whatever the recommendations they have, make sure that you heed those and try to listen and give them a platform to broadcast that.
I would say probably from a student.
I would have
Go,
to.
Kaylee. Go. You're good. Go.
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions and build relationships with the learners and the educators.
Yeah, I would kind of say the same thing. Just be very mindful of your presence, and like if you keep showing up for those kids, they're gonna keep showing up for you. Would be like my advice. So like as long as you show up for the learners, and the learners will show up back for you.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and replace this. All right. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate you joining and engaging in the webinar with us today. Really appreciate your time and your engagement. Thank you so much to our speakers who have shared so much wonderful information. If you have any questions, feel free to explore the Advance CTE website. We have a bunch of resources on there. You are also more than welcome to reach out to Advance CTE if you have any questions about this work or would like to get into connection with any of the panelists that were on this webinar. But for now, really appreciate everyone joining. Kathy, Sean, Tom, Daniela, Reed, Kaylee, thank you so much for being here and for sharing about the wonderful work you're doing. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.